Hey there, folks. I'm Mark, in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and it's Billboard Breakdown. I don't remember. Look, we all knew this was coming, and at least I knew it was going to be a wild summer with a lot of artists rushing to get material out, and Billboard is just riding a wave of delayed impact. So not only do we have the J. Cole album bomb, we also got a mini album bomb from Nicki Minaj, and other scattered singles, and when we flip over to our top 10, we got a new number 1, the second from Olivia Rodrigo, Good For You. Now, I'll be talking about her debut album on my main channel, likely and on the Pulse, and this song specifically much later on, but it's notable just how much groundswell she has here. A strong sales debut, the radio growth is already starting to take root, and oh yeah, she beat every single J. Cole song on streaming and YouTube this week by a notable margin. I mean, you can call it bad timing that he keeps on getting blocked here, as My Life with 21 Savage and Murray came up just short at number 2, basically on streaming alone, because that's really all behind J. Cole at this point. But that is kind of the point. If you're not even going to try for the other channels, you're not really building hits with any sort of consistent groundswell beyond this week. It did push back Levitating by Dua Lipa featuring DaBaby to number 3, which still has good sales and pop radio traction, but at this point it just was not enough. Same for Leave the Door Open by Silk Sonic down to number 4, which rules the radio, but it's just a little bit behind on sales with even weaker streaming. Then we got Amari by J. Cole at number 5, again, streaming, although you can also tell this one is being primed as a single thanks to the music video. And right behind it we've got Peaches by Justin Bieber featuring Daniel Caesar and Giveon at number 6, which is making a radio run for the top there. The question is whether or not it's going to have enough. Then we got the J. Cole song that I think should be the obvious single, Pride is the Devil with Lil Baby at number 7, which probably has one of the best hooks on the album. Or, you know, if you want to go the other way, 95 South is at number 8, and it's also the closest thing to a hype track that J. Cole's ever had. Finally, to wrap this up, we got Save Your Tears by The Weeknd and Ariana Grande at number 9. It peaked on the radio, it's getting rotated off, but it is stable in all channels, so it's going to take some time. And Kiss Me More by Doja Cat featuring SZA down at number 10, which might be doing even better with its radio run and pretty stable streaming as of recently. The problem is, I don't really know how many of these will be able to fill in the gaps coming next week, because Olivia Rodrigo is coming with an album bomb of her own, and BTS is charging for the number 1 yet again with Butter, so what gets caught up in the crossfire and winds up losing momentum? That's an open question. And you know, speaking of said crossfire, we don't have any gains this week. Now, we do have a couple of returns. The Climb Back by J. Cole, it's the obvious one, back at number 25 and makes the charts worse for it, along with Come Through by Her featuring Chris Brown at 89 thanks to the video, and bizarrely Wasted on You by Morgan Wallen at 97. But of course, the stories are losers, all the dropouts, and there's a lot of both. In the latter category, this basically served to clean out the charts of the established hits for what's coming for the rest of the year. And given the majority of these have already clinched their year-end list spots, I'm kind of okay with that. From Ariana Grande, we saw the losses of 34 plus 35 and Positions. From Tate McRae, we have You Broke Me First. From Bad Bunny and Jay Cortez, we had Dakiti. Wow, that song had a lot of legs. From YoungBoy and Drake, we have Your Mind Still. From Billie Eilish, we had Therefore I Am. From Thomas Rhett, we had What's Your Country Song. From SZA, we had Good Days. And on the borderline of the year-end list for 2021, we got Just the Way by Parmalee and Blanco Brown potentially getting in, and Down to One by Luke Bryan, likely just missing it. Ouch. But you know what? As expected, the bigger story here is our losers. And here's the thing, given that J. Cole's album bomb all landed in the top 40, the majority of the impact was felt there, with the bottom half of the chart being mostly spared a lot of grief, or they had some expected departures. For instance, I'm not exactly surprised that from Moneybagg Yo, Time Today fell down to 53 and Shada's Lala went to 90, or that Your Power from Billie Eilish continued down to 54, or that Young Thug and Gunna saw more losses for Solid Withdrawal Drake at 76 and Ski at 63. Then we had the debuts that slid naturally. Miss the Rage by Trippie Redd and Playboi Carti fell hard to 50. Never Left by Lil Tecca started leaving at 91. And Higher Power by Coldplay fell down to 95. Then we had a few scattered country cuts taking some body blows, like Lady by Brett Young on its way out at 98, or Made For You by Jake Owen taking a dip down to 56, and then from there, Street Runner by Rod Wave at 84, Streets by Doja Cat at 68, that god-awful Goosebumps remix from Hume and Travis Scott at 65, and No More Parties by Coi Leray and Lil Durk at 60. But now getting into the top half with our losers here, what's important to note is that if you were competing on streaming with J. Cole, you lost. And that makes up the bulk of what we have here. Up by Cardi B at 27, Calling My Phone by Lil TJ and Black at 29, Best Friend by Saweetie and Doja Cat at 30, Beatbox by Spot 'em Got 'em at 31. Every Chance I Get by DJ Khaled featuring Lil Baby and Lil Durk at 35. Back in Blood by Pooh Shiesty and Lil Durk at 40. Trackstar by Mooski at 44. On Me by Lil Baby at 47. And Wants and Needs by Drake and Lil Baby at 49. Hell, it even touched the younger country acts that have streaming traction, like The Good Ones by Gabby Barrett at 41. And Breaking Up Was Easy in the 90s by Sam Hunt at 43. Not exactly complaining about these ones. But the rest of our losers, look, long-running songs, I'm not surprised that they're finally seeing a dip, with the youngest probably being We're Good by Dua Lipa getting caught up in bad timing at 46. But then there's What You Know About Love by the late Pop Smoke getting rotated out at 45, or Mood by 24K Golden featuring Ian Dior at 37, or My Ex's Best Friend by Machine Gun Kelly and Black Bear at 34, or even Blinding Lights by The Weeknd at 23, a song that I dearly love, but I can acknowledge will likely be making its exit sooner after 76 weeks on the Hot 100. Nearly a year and a half. It can go. I'm okay with that. Anyway, we had a ton of new arrivals this week, and I can't really escape any of them because J. Cole's entire album debuted in the top 40, and the lower half of the charts didn't slow down. So even though I made a review of that album that was nearly 25 minutes long with exhaustive detail, we're gonna have to run through all of it. Although you can excuse me for keeping some of the J. Cole segments a little bit shorter, which I tried to do. But you know what? We're not starting with him. Number 100, Crocodile Teeth by Nicki Minaj and Skillibeng.
On a bowl like me full of gun, heavy clip full of crocodile teeth. Everything get fuck when I reach. 16 bun up boy skin.
So, okay, this is not technically a new Nicki Minaj album. It's a reissued mixtape from 2009 where she tacked on a few new songs. And it's worth mentioning that only one song from the original tape actually made it back. This is one of the new ones that she made with Skillibeng, who is a dancehall artist, and that kind of makes sense, is a flavor that Nicki Minaj tends to like, especially as this is actually a remix of his song on her project. And wow, it sounds like a Queen-era leftover verse that was just dropped on top of this song with very little focus to building something more cohesive or distinctive. Now granted, when it comes to dancehall that I like, I'm a little bit surprised how dreary and restrained this is. Saturated in reverb with limited percussion and a very somber piano line. It feels like the firepower and texture that I normally mostly like in dancehall just got sucked away. And not only does that kill all the menace from Skillibeng's references, it also doesn't match all that well with Nicki Minaj's very gruff flexing as well, a lot of which feels very interchangeable. Yeah, I'm gonna forget this exists in record time. Next, number 94, Things a Man Oughta Know by Lainy Wilson.
If you really love a woman, you don't let her go. Yeah, I know a few things a man ought to know.
You know, I really do feel bad for a certain subset of new acts trying to play the Music Row game in Nashville right now, and the arc of Lainy Wilson's career thus far has had some of that vibe. She moved to Nashville, she started off indie and actually got some real charting traction. She got signed, got a single moving, an entire album produced by Jay Joyce dropped in February, and I heard pretty much nothing about it. It didn't seem to chart all that well, I didn't see that much coverage, and with limited touring options to build organic groundswell, she's had to rely on the very slow Nashville radio pipeline, which is now pushing the single that first dropped in September of 2019. And it's kind of a damn shame because I like this a fair bit. I've said before that when Jay Joyce doesn't overmanage the mix, he can provide a level of crisp, warm texture and spacious atmosphere that really accentuates the bright but lonely strumming and the echoing guitars in the mix. And when the acoustic guitar work is as good as it is here, that's a really big plus. And I like the lyrics too. It's a breakup song, but the edges are more subtle, where she highlights that she can not only do everything that this guy did, but she also tries to get the try-hard stoicism and the tough guy routine that can leave a partner feeling very stranded or isolated. And I like how you can tell that she really is hurt, but it's left more in the subtext and the delivery, which she can really sell. So yeah, I really like this. Took long enough to get it here, but I'll take it. Number 82, Itty Bitty Piggy by Nicki Minaj.
Hell, man. Listen, I'm the baddest in the school, the baddest in the game. Excuse me, honey, but nobody's in my lane.
This was the one original mixtape song that actually charted. You know, the one built off a Soulja Boy sample with that title. So surprising this didn't break through in 2009. But in fairness, this is mixtape Nicki. This is what blew everyone's minds in the late 2000s, got her the traction going, widely hailed in the scene as still being pretty damn solid, and okay, you know what? It's not really her fault here. I'm starting to hear a lot of nostalgia for 2000s era rap resurface more and more, but there are elements of that era we can't leave behind. The DJ punch-ins that got stale really fast, the underweight snares, the questionable mixing all the way through, the fact that more often than not these are extended freestyles more than fully composed songs. And yes, Nicki Minaj showed a lot of promise here. Her punchlines, they're mostly on point. She's got energy. And while I think the lines in the hook showcase some of the plastic childishness and obnoxiousness that's always been frustrating from her for me, I also know I'm never going to be her target audience. I get it. I've accepted it. At least she sounds a lot more creative and engaged. But in 2021, this is a throwback to a pretty rough era of mainstream rap. And given the promise that she has never quite fully realized, the nostalgia, not quite there. At least for me. Number 78, White Teeth by YoungBoy, Never Broke Again.
Ooh, she fucking with me, oh she like me. She know that basic shit, it don't excite me.
So this is a little embarrassing for me to admit. Even if I've warmed a little to YoungBoy Never Broke Again, I know his limitations as an artist, and how he's rarely as interesting or flavorful as he should be, and that's one reason that the YoungBoy memes are actually pretty funny. But again, I can't have expectations for his music, I've just heard too much of it, and as such, I'm kind of mixed on this one. I've always been pretty mixed on YoungBoy, making a lot of flex material, mostly because he's a little bit too unstable and paranoid to really cultivate the vibe. See his entire first verse here. But he's not really playing into that paranoia either, and when the song just falls more into brand name porn and sex, I remember exactly how quickly this sort of material can get stale. Now I will say the production's a little better here, the guitar loop is pretty developed, it sounds nice, and this song is actually competently mixed and mastered for once, so it does feel like there's a little bit more refinement as they got the music video for it, but it does feel a little like a half measure, and it leaves me thinking that if YoungBoy actually committed to making a more interesting and flavorful album, I might actually wind up sticking up for it. This, I don't know, it's fine, but again, when he's got this sort of longevity, more than he frankly deserves, should be a little bit more to show for it. Just saying. Number 67, His and Hers by Internet Money, Don Toliver, and Lil Uzi Vert featuring Gunna.
Close the window curtains, right up in your skirt, take off, hit the curve, too lean in that Birkin.
Okay, so last week I said I actually kind of came around to like Lemonade, mostly thanks to Don Toliver on the hook and Internet Money giving him some propulsive production. So this looks like it's got a similar formula. Swap out Nah for Lil Uzi Vert, obvious upgrade, and so is it better? Honestly, kind of tough to say. It doesn't have the immediate magnetism of Don Toliver just hollering the hook when he dips into his far less impressive falsetto, and as much as I'm not the biggest fan of the whole break your spine sex reference, Lil Uzi Vert decides he wants to make it way more literal and says he's gonna break her ribs next. How is it one of the most shallow rappers working today doesn't understand that a song like this, it's all about the vibes, all about disposable flexing, not going to that place, especially as Don Toliver and Gunna are more focused on the encounter being a little more romantic? And by that I mean sharing brands, luxury traveling, and then fucking in cars. I mean, that certainly matches the more languid guitar pickup and the hazy feel overall. I mean, I wish the percussion was a little better mastered, or if it wasn't very obvious that Uzi's verse was recorded elsewhere, or that the most memorable line wasn't, "Baby, hit that back and burp." So yeah, no guarantees this grows on me as much as Lemonade did. I'll just leave it there. Number 58, Build a Bitch by Bella Poarch.
Attitude, so if you need perfect, I'm not built for you.
I started seeing this video pop up randomly, trending on YouTube this past week, so discovering that Bella Poarch built the majority of her success on TikTok does not surprise me. What I discovered was that she's the third most popular star on that platform behind Charli D'Amelio and Addison Rae, and as of today holds the record of the video at the most likes on TikTok. So yeah, discovering that she also has a record deal does not surprise me. And as for the results, wow, this feels like a Melanie Martinez song. The disaffected vocals, the clockwork faux Disney approach to some of the sound, the bassy sing-song drop, especially some of the childlike reference points. And yes, it makes a good point that you can't make people be something that they're not in a relationship, which is a projection that a lot of guys put on women. One of the best examples that comes to mind is Girl Next Door by Brandy Clark. But you know, there's way more polish on this than the majority of homegrown TikTok songs that I've heard, and that's very telling of just how infiltrated that space is right now. And it kind of makes me feel a little bad for Ashniko, who has a lot of similar themes and way more personality for better and worse in her material, and she's on the same label, but she got snubbed the American promo run in favor of someone who has, at this point, nearly 70 million followers on their primary platform. I mean, I get why they did it, and this isn't bad per se, but I've heard these ideas done better. Number 52, Fractions by Nicki Minaj.
Vicious accusations on them blogs and they all fictitious. I done bent the realest blocks, push the hardest sixes. Keep a couple killers that don't care how far them licks is. Look.
Does anything tell you just how much effort Nicki Minaj puts into these songs by the fact there's not even a hook? Just another extended verse. I'm not talking about the rapping here, although given how slow some of her flows are, I could raise questions. But in terms of constructing the song, it feels like a glorified freestyle with admittedly some pretty decent production. The sandy percussion, the ominous melody, the song is built to feel imperious, and it does get there. But here's the thing. This is Nicki Minaj dissing the field of women in mainstream rap, the obvious shots at Cardi and all the new crowd that she thinks are just fucking their way to the top. And a cut like this is why Nicki Minaj has been so goddamn frustrating for me for about a decade now. You see the growth of women breaking out in the mainstream with flair and a lot of personality, and this is Nicki's response to assert why she still belongs on top, and it just feels clunky. Completely lacking any sense of populism. This isn't being the bad guy. This is someone who is salty that the field is now more crowded and there's more competition and the bandwagon fans have found better options. And in comparison with the mixtape era punchlines that we already covered, there's not a lot that's gonna get me back to this. I mean, the production saves this from being worse, but man, the lack of growth from Nicki, just exhausting. Number 38, Straightenin by Migos.
Yeah, straightening, yeah. Don't not get straightening but straightening. Don't not get straightening but straightening. Don't not get straightening but straightening. You don't get shit straight, you don't straighten it.
And on the topic of lack of growth, I thought there would be more hype for Migos' return than there's been. I mean, sure, Culture 3, so long as it's not as long as the last album, should be good, right? Well, if the entire song here didn't feel like an indictment as to why there hasn't been much of a clamor for new Migos, I don't know what is. It's been 3 years since the last album and you haven't varied the flow or sound at least a little? Yes, I know everyone copied the Migos, but now they've kind of moved on to new things, and they're doing more interesting stuff within trap, and yet this sounds completely frozen in place. It's not bad for it. You can clearly tell that every member recorded their vocals in different locations because the fidelities don't match, and for an act with so much presence in trap, you would think the percussion in particular would sound a little bit less cheap, and I'm still thinking that Takeoff was robbed of more of a solo run than he got, but once you get past all that, it's a Migos song. And with the content not budging an inch here either, I'm not nostalgic for something that got played out 3 years ago. They've done better, they've done worse, but I'm just gonna forget this exists. Next, number 33, Close by J. Cole.
Gotta be patient and trust in God, he the coach. Temptations are taking a shortcut, but I don't. Cause I ain't trying to be a almost. When I get it, I'm afloat.
So again, I already covered the J. Cole album at length, and we've got the entire thing up again, so I'm going to reserve my commentary per song to something that might be a little shorter or more quippy. So starting here, like the themes, like the storytelling, I actually discovered the sample is a flip of an MF Doom sample that only feeds into the haunted vibe. Shame I really didn't like the sample when Doom did it either, so it's just okay. Number 28, Hunger on Hillside by J. Cole and Boz.
Dead wrong. Fighting off this hunger for hours. Big step, a nigga don't get stepped on.
You know, Boz doesn't rap on this album. He just sings. That's a wasted opportunity. But on the concluding track of the album, I'm left wanting more here too, because despite a pretty soulful flip in the production, J. Cole leans into the whole God will provide message to continue the endless grind, and then mocks guys fucking multiple women because then they'll realize they're the hoe. Shame he didn't ask the follow-up question, what's wrong with that? But it feels like this album misses the memo on multiple follow-ups, so not surprising. Number 20, Punchin.the.clock by J.
Got
Cole.
more cribs than Habitat for Humanity. Shit profound, we propagating more profanity. Paid out collections for recollections of calamity.
Okay, you sample the Dame Lillard speech and you don't actually get him to drop a verse, even though he can actually spit and would probably fit well with the themes on the album? Anyway, J. Cole talks about having more cribs than Habitat for Humanity. I don't like that line. He reminisces about misadventures with guns and drugs, all in his dreams, of course. And he's got two legit good punchlines. One about Dandy Kane, and one about a guy who died over a cross like the start of Christianity. Otherwise, feels kind of like a glorified interlude than an actual song. Let's move on. Number 19, Let.go.my.hand by J. Cole, Boz, and Black. Definitely a more thoughtful moment here with the faded horns, although the thought is pretty reserved as J. Cole muses about dabbling in religion, for which he doesn't have the commitment, continuous fears of being in fraud, so he gets in fights, and then references knowing too much and warning against ignorance and the inevitable death of innocence, of which he wants to shield from his son, but he can't. I mean, you'd think he'd pass along some of that knowledge to the audience outside of a prayer from Puff at the very end. That might be asking too much, apparently, though. Number 14, 100 Mil by J. Cole.
These niggas say that they killers, they lying. Only thing I see them killing is high. 100 million, I'm still on the grind. 100 million, I'm still on the grind. 100 million, I'm still on the grind. 100 million, I'm still on the grind.
God, I hate how that sample feels so nasal when T-Minus and J. Cole chopped it up. And considering the rest of the song is an extended flex about how much money he's made, but also how it's never really changed him, and that you need to get off your own vices if you want to be like him. But okay, wait, by the second verse, it's not about the money, it's about time, because he's just like LeBron in the last stages of his career, and somehow I'm feeling a song this disconnected might not have come from the same guy, at least the one who put out Sideline Story. Boz sounds pretty good in the outro, though. May have saved the song. Number 13, Applying Pressure by J. Cole.
And I'm showing like they in they second trimesters. That's why when niggas throw a shot or two online, I pay no mind to they benign gestures. Nigga, please.
Look, the song isn't just bad because of the millionaire line, which screams of insecurity in the same way the lie at the start of the verse does when he says that he's not bothered by people throwing shots at him online. And outside of the charting hit called Snow on the Bluff that says otherwise, the cheap-sounding air horns, the spacey effects, and the always tasteful move of sampling Martin Luther King Jr. to conveniently ignore his socialist side to go on full black capitalism, the entire track screams of sour insecurity. Kind of a shame because overall his rhymes in the song are actually really good. Shame his mind is closed to a lot of bigger ideas though. Just saying. Number 12, Seeing Green by Nicki Minaj, Drake, and Lil Wayne.
Ask y'all, who asked y'all? Sequel told me to stomp my ass off, that's all. Bop, 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 bop. He was a good cat, my bad dog.
Okay, bit of a break from J. Cole for a bit. For more Nicki Minaj, this time recruiting Drake and Lil Wayne, and along the way forgetting to write a hook. But alright, fine, all three of them, they can go off on verses, and even if I think the Chipmunk Soul thing does very little for me, I was hoping that everyone could make something out of this, and Well, I thought Wayne's verse was actually pretty good. He's never gonna escape an opportunity for a bathroom joke, and a lot of his rambling flow of references, they only barely connect, and a lot of it circles around sex yet again. But by the end, where he's rapping about not being able to see Drake because they closed the border, so free Drizzy, okay, I kinda laughed. Now, shame that laughter didn't continue into Nicki's verse, which is a lot of the same imperious flexing and dissing more women in rap, but man, she doesn't sound like she's having any fun. And Nicki, if you're actively calling out corporate giants and machines against you as the real problem, why not name them? Be a lot more interesting than all this is. And then there's Drake, who I'm most familiar with over this sort of production, and he does sound the most comfortable, and his verse is fine enough. I didn't know he had political plans long term. In Canada, that's worrying. And I don't know how he got away with the line, "Your girl is better in the morning like a slice of pizza." But even with his time out of the spotlight confirmed by that basketball injury he had, I'm kind of done listening to Drake flex. I've said this before. He's not been interesting for a while, and I've never felt inspired by this. So for the song, fine. 2 good verses redeem 1 bad in the production. I'll take that. Number 8, 95 South by J. Cole.
Flat since back when CDs was around. What you sold, I tripled that. I can't believe these fucking clowns. Look how everybody clapping when your 30-song album do a measly 100,000.
J. Cole tries to make a hype anthem, mostly succeeds because the punchlines are flowing on pretty well, although why on earth he shouted out Eric Clapton of all people baffles me given what he's involved in. But of course by the second verse he makes a period reference to lesser rappers bleeding on themselves, and then throws out a bunch of threats that I will never ever buy coming from J. Cole given his own words on this album. And by the end, I just wanted to put on the Lil Jon song that they sampled. That's better than this. Number 7, Pride is the Devil by J. Cole and Lil Baby.
Think it got a hold on me. Pride is the devil. And left so many R.I.P.
Alright, not gonna be as snarky with this one. It's probably my favorite song on the album. The groove is really good, great hook, great post-chorus. Interesting to note this is a flip of the same sample that Eminem used, and you can kind of tell it's a good fit and vibe, and J. Cole captures a moment of actual introspection, questioning his pride and his bragging, where the roots of that insecurity and sin really lie, even when people say they're proud of him. And then Lil Baby steals the song by flipping up the bigger picture, where the aspirations are still undercut by some very real anxieties, both internal and external. If Dreamville is not pushing this as a single, the label should be broken up. This is great. Check it out. Number 5, Amari by J. Cole.
Fake got a couple M's hiding in the safe. Imagination turn a Honda into Wraith. I was doing 80 on the interstate, trying to make it back before my class started. Country nigga never seen a pass for it till I popped off and got a bag for it.
You know, I don't mind J. Cole on melodic flows, especially as he's got a bit of a bite to his voice that gives him a little texture that flatters the sandy flute and the guitar splashing off the trap groove. My problem with the song is that it kind of flows a little bit too well. The hook doesn't really stand out, and when the song has some darker elements that could use the contrast, it doesn't really materialize, especially when so much of this reflects a guy who really wants to get out of the rap game however possible and as soon as possible. Still a good groove though. I don't mind this either. Number 2, My Life by J. Cole, 21 Savage, and Murray.
My bad, and I done made it out the struggle, don't judge me. What you saying now won't budge me.
You could have given Murray a verse, Cole, or would that have been 2 rappers to wipe you off your own track? Because between the Squarespace line, the Ja Morant line, and once again going through his own come-up story that just conveniently misses just how much of J. Cole's initial appeal was jump-started off the college circuit and him playing it very safe with the backing of Rock Nation, which might be why 21 and Murray have a little bit more soulful bite and darker presence, even if 21 sounds like he's putting in his world-weary verse that's a lot part 2. You know, enough things go right. I do think this is a good song, but again, should have been better. And finally, number 1, Good For You by Olivia Rodrigo. I mean, the machine is working. For real, to nab multiple songs debuting at number 1 off a debut album, it's a sight to behold. And while some of that can be charted up to weak songs in the top 10, I can also tell when the industry thinks they've got their newest big star, so for her newest number 1, what is it? Well, Okay, there's a fair bit that I like about this, but it's hard for me to avoid the feeling this might be very good without being great. And that involves the most obvious melodic influence. The hook really reminds me of an underpowered Misery Business by Paramore. Now, I actually happen to think that Misery Business is a great song from Paramore's best album, a pop-punk rager that has Hayley Williams playing the toxic villain that does go way too far. And the fact that you can both recognize that in the modern day, but also acknowledge it can play to your darkest, pettiest urges, it's still a testament to how well it actually kind of resonates in a way that Avril Lavigne's Girlfriend never really has. But on a level of instrumentation and production, Olivia Rodrigo just does not have that firepower. The guitars are washed out and primarily acoustic, driving in the groove. The drums are louder than the lead melody. The verses wind up feeling weirdly jerky. And Olivia Rodrigo just has way too much good taste to ever play the villain or even bend towards toxicity. This is a song where she is pissed that her ex moved on too fast and that he's pulling his life together, he left her behind, and man, she's not taking it well. But for as angry as she is, the whole sarcastic, well, good for you, it's not really a punch that lands strongly if he's already moved on. The entire song feels like it's pulling its punches, in lyrics and the production. And while it's certainly a lot smarter and more self-aware, I'm not sure that makes it precisely better. And this wouldn't be so obvious if I couldn't spot the melodic parallels to a much better song that certainly is more openly flawed in a conventional way, but might be better for it. I don't know. Maybe if the guitars had a little bit more roar, or if Olivia Rodrigo could sell the break from the Disney polish a little better without the vocal filters, I could hear myself really loving this. Hell, MGK is the biggest example where it worked for me in his sort of derivative pop punk. But as it is, like the majority of Olivia Rodrigo I've heard, very good, maybe not great. And that makes my best and worst of the week a little bit messy, because given that we actually have 20 songs, I have a tie for my best of the week. Pride is the Devil by J. Cole and Lil Baby, and Things a Man Ought to Know by Lainy Wilson, with the honorable mention going to Good For You by Olivia Rodrigo, because again, it is a really good song. Now for the worst, you know what, I would give it to Fractions by Nicki Minaj for how much it annoys me, but the production does push it to the dishonorable mention because Applying Pressure by J. Cole stinks, and if it wasn't for the climb back, it'd be the worst in the album by a country mile. Anyway, this long-ass episode aside, next week is Olivia Rodrigo's album bomb going toe-to-toe with BTS. I'm probably going to wind up stuck covering all of that, so stay tuned. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown, affiliated with Spectrum.